Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives in the world's leading global brands. On today's show, we're going to be discussing how we can fight back against the Great Resignation and how this trend has impacted women across the world. I'm super excited for this episode. We're live in the studio. Welcome to the Christmas studio as well. We're a bit early, but we're a bit excited. And I'm also super excited to be joined by Maryann Abbajay, Chief Revenue Officer at SAP SuccessFactors. But more importantly, she's a mother and she's a champion of employee experience. Welcome to the show, Maryann. How are you?
I am great, Chris. Thanks for having me.
It's nice to see you. Nice to see you again. Before we jump in, I mentioned a little bit there, but tell everyone a little bit more about yourself personally and your journey to where we are now.
Absolutely. So I do have 4 children. You mentioned I was a mother, very much a wife as well. And, basically when I had kids, I took 10 years off. I know everybody can't do that, but I was able to. And so I did. It was awesome, really great. But coming back was hard, right? Because when you're out for 10 years, especially in high tech, so many things have changed. And so it was tough. There was nobody to help. But, you kind of reconnect with your old network and, you're back and you learn all the things. You try not to look stupid as you're learning all the things that you missed for 10 years.
Yeah. What was the biggest challenge out of curiosity coming back?
I got to tell you, it truly was technology. And I'll tell you a funny story. I went to work for my brother. He was VP of sales at a startup. Thank goodness.
That's hard enough though, isn't it? Working for your brother?
It was hard because I'm the oldest and he's the youngest of 5. So.
Oh, all right. He's like, I've got it now.
But anyway, so he's like, well, let me show you the product. So he says, I'm going to send you a link. Click the link. And so I clicked the link and I realize I'm looking at his computer screen. And I'm like, oh, is that your computer screen? He's like, man, it's WebEx. Like, what is wrong with you?
Oh my God.
So it was things like that where you just it's moved on and you have to figure it out pretty quickly and not look stupid. So I was glad at that point I was working for my brother.
Yeah, interesting. And tell everyone a little bit more about your role now, though, because you've been with the company a while. You've been before. You've come back. Tell everyone a bit more about that.
Absolutely. So I've been with SAP for 15 years, and I'm the Chief Revenue Officer of SAP SuccessFactors, which is a global role. It's been a challenging role. I've been in this particular role for the last year, and obviously because of the pandemic, I haven't met most of the people that I work with. So I'm really looking forward to meeting the entire team, hopefully this week, next week, the week after, and then over the next couple months, as long as things stay under control.
Mm-hmm. Talking about being a leader at SAP SuccessFactors, there's something I've heard from other colleagues in the past. It's something quite unique about your leadership structure at SAP. Could you share a bit more about that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is unique. So I work with 2 women. We have what's called 3 in a box at SAP to run a line of business. We have the product side, Meg Baer. We have the marketing side, Jill Popelka, and we have me on the sales side. And we are the only LOB at SAP that is made up of all women. And the thing that's been really cool about that, especially for me, having been in high tech for so long, is that these are women who are supportive, who are competitive, but only competitive outside of the LOB, not with each other. And we have each other's backs. And that is very different than women I worked for 20, 25 years ago who had fought so hard to get to the top. They were not focused on bringing other women up with them. And it was really tough. So it's very unique. It's a once in a lifetime thing for all of us. And we're very excited to be together.
Yeah, that's definitely unique and not something you come across often as well. And hopefully it inspires other people that are listening out there as well. We first spoke, actually before we spoke, I saw your article that you recently posted on online where you spoke about the Great Resignation. You spoke about that women are leaving the workforce, a high far rate than men, especially during the pandemic. What can we do then to prevent the loss of female talent? And, how can we ensure that women are prepared once they return to the workplace? And before I let you answer that, I also experienced this at home. There was a conversation with my wife and I during this where there was a point where she wasn't going to return to the workplace, very close, and for many reasons we're about to discuss. But she then decided to do that. But we're seeing it all around us at an alarming rate.
We are, yeah, we are, and especially, I mean, Bureau of Labor Statistics says that 3.2 million women have left the workforce. Since that statistic was gathered, we know that in August, 4.3 million people left the workforce, and in September, 4.4 million people. And you know, a large percentage of them were women. So what can we do? First of all, if a woman wants to leave the workforce to take care of kids, to take care of elderly parents, we're going to support that. But if they don't, if they really don't, they want to stay, they're just trying to figure it out, I think it's incumbent on us as employers, as leaders, to help them be successful. How do we do that? Well, we definitely have to put more into childcare. Childcare is super expensive. Yeah. And there are many companies, I talk with CHROs every single week. There are many companies who have stepped up their childcare allowances for women and men, to take advantage of. I think there's other things that are a little bit more subtle that we can do as managers. We don't set meetings at times when maybe they're picking the kids up from whether it's daycare or school. We don't set a meeting at between 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning. We don't set a meeting
at lunchtime when you've got to feed your kids. Yeah, I had to say to the team, by the way, between these times, especially over the last 2 years, I'm feeding Robin. I can't be on an afternoon call. I've got, and again, unless you're in that situation, people just don't take that into consideration as well. And all of those things you mentioned were the things that my wife and I were discussing, saying, you know what, I don't want to give up being able to pick up Robin from nursery. Like exactly. if you require me to come back 5 days a week to sit at a desk when I can do this at home, and I can no longer pick up my daughter from nursery and have that quality time. I'd rather look elsewhere or maybe be part of a company that will allow me to do that.
And look, we see that all the time. If employers are not flexible, people leave. They will absolutely leave. So we've got to have that flexibility. And, Chris, I think you're doing something that women probably should do more of. You're on a call and you say, I'm feeding Robin. We won't do that. We'll mute. We'll pretend like we're not feeding our baby or
my wife does that as well, by the way. You're so right. And I'm like, why don't you just tell your manager that? She's like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, what? Just tell. And then when she does, they're like, yeah, sure, no worries. I was like, why are you so worried for? Exactly. This is the extremes, right? That sometimes my wife goes to as well, and she won't mind me saying this. There was a point where we had to go to the hospital, and she had a phone call, and her computer, for example, if you don't use it for a certain amount of time, it logs out. So she had it on the back seat of the car, logged in, just to make sure that her manager and team didn't think she was working. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, just tell them we're busy right now. You'll get back to it, right? And I think over the last few, 6 to 8 months, that conversation's a lot more free flowing with her manager, and she's like, "Oh wow, he does understand." But for many people, they just kind of battle through that in silence, which just causes more stress, more anxiety, etc.
It's true, and I do think it's incumbent on us to set up those safe places so that you feel you can say, hey, I got to go to the hospital. I can't be on this call.
Yeah. It's pretty, we're laughing about it, but it's a whole new world as well, because you also have to understand for the managers and leaders, they're also not used to leading in this way and having those conversations. So you also need to provide the appropriate training for them. It's hard enough managing a team just in person, let alone when half are in the office, half out, and they're at different stages of their life and their careers as well.
That is a great point. And very early in the pandemic, I had a conversation with a CHRO whose husband worked for the same company. And he was struggling with, well, how much personal information do I ask? Like, I want to be respectful, but And he specifically was talking about a single employee, which is a whole nother problem when you're in a pandemic and you have to isolate and you're lonely and you can't be around your friends. And he said, I want to ask questions, but I'm not sure how far I can go. And I definitely think probably women are a little bit more comfortable with that because we ask a lot more questions. But to your point, training for managers is critical in this time, that we're living in. And honestly, I think going forward, we need more training along those lines where we can help managers understand that they can ask without being nosy.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that is one of the silver linings now, actually, that we are having conversations around well-being, and leading with empathy. Again, this sort of everyone's been through this together. So I'm seeing leaders be more vulnerable, more open, which is then encouraging their teams. So it's really nice to see that. We've still got a long way to go, don't get me wrong, but I feel like we've made, we've got a long way to go. Talking about training, what about when it comes to reskilling and upskilling and reskilling those who have left and want to come back to the workplace?
Absolutely. Great question. So as you probably are aware, SuccessFactors has a very robust learning management system. We also have Litmus as part of our portfolio now. Both of those systems offer enterprise learning. And what we found, Singapore Airlines is a really great example of this. When their pilots and flight attendants were grounded, Singapore Airlines took action and realized that they were going to need to reskill and upskill their employees. Things were going to change, right? Sanitation was going to change. How you manage people when they come on the plane was going to change. So they very quickly mobilized and put together a great learning program. But we can take that a lot further because, to your point, health, wellness are critical right now. People don't take care of themselves the way they should. We can offer more in the way of training around, what you can do, how you can do it, and make those things, basically just available for employees to take advantage of.
Yeah, and especially in those industries, where they can't access a PC and they're able to do that on the mobile when they're traveling. That's now in the past that was almost a luxury. Now it's essential. we need to provide that experience. Yeah. I was speaking to another airline recently who obviously are recruiting like crazy right now, right? Because we're now opening up, or somewhat now, depend on where you are and what's happening. And again, having platforms like that in places are essential for them to upskill and onboard people as well when they're all over the world, different locations. We spoke about this before, and in our last conversation, the improved holistic benefit programs. Could you share some examples of what you're seeing out there?
Yeah. So let me give you a couple. One that I loved and came from Deloitte, actually from one of the HR leaders at Deloitte. It's basically a service that allows you help with finding the right care, whether that's childcare, whether that's elder care, whether it's in-home, whether it's a daycare type environment. That was unique. On the health and wellness front, we have quite a few. There's a lot on meditation, on yoga, on all kinds of different exercises. One of our great customers, Peloton, has a phenomenal program for companies, and we're actually piloting it at SAP, where basically they set up a program. We have some of our leaders as like the coaches. I won't say the instructors, but the coaches. And it's competitive.
I'm about to say, I bet they're all like, if you ever met my co-founder, Shane, he'll be like, I want to be top of the leaderboard at all times. He's obsessed. Exactly. I'm not even going to try it because you're just working too hard. I can't keep up. Yeah. That was Peloton really took off, didn't it, during the pandemic? Like all of a sudden I saw everyone on a Peloton.
It's funny because I sort of fought against it. I'm like, I got a bike, I got a treadmill. I'm not sure I really need it. When I got that Peloton, oh my gosh, I was like, now I get it. It's awesome.
It's the community that I didn't realize that are built around it, right? And, you know, being together with, even though you're obviously virtually on looking at a screen with the bike, you know, you feel like you're part of it. Shane would always tell me about these trails he's been on and this mountain that he went up, obviously virtually, but he's really into it. I was like, all right, Shane, you was on a virtual mountain, calm down. So.
I have to say, I love that. And I also love the instructors. And when you talk to other people, it's like, well, who's your favorite instructor?
Oh, really?
You know,
Oh, okay. That's cool that the leaders that are involved. Again, it just humanizes everyone and it brings them together, right? You know, it's not an us and them mentality that exists.
Exactly.
Yeah. What about from a cultural perspective? What do you see that's emerged over the last 18 months?
Yeah, great question. I think it's basically the culture has to be, what can I do for you, rather than what are you doing for me? And, you know, in many cases, there are certain leaders who were always like that. I think now you see many leaders who maybe didn't act like that before, who are more about like, how can I help you? What would make your life easier? How can we do things as a company to help with what's going on in your life? That is a very unique situation compared to what we've seen in the past, where we were always looking for what are the employees doing for the company. It's the other way around now. And you mentioned, you know, the flexibility aspect. It's not only flexibility in terms of coming into the office, but it's flexibility around where you live. You know, many people, as you know, have moved out of the city. They're moving to farms, and we have to be flexible. We have to be okay with that. And honestly, given 2 years now, I mean, we're making it work, right?
Yeah, we've proven that. All those people that we can't do it. You know, I think on the cultural piece, though, one thing that I still keep hearing coming up again, and there's different people have different various opinions on it, is the idea of building culture virtually. What are your thoughts on that? You know, we're like you hear the phrases, we're an in-office culture. You've probably heard that one flying around. You know, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, so again, back to the CHROs. I've talked to a lot of CHROs who work for companies where it was truly an office culture. Maybe it was a manufacturing company, maybe it was a utility. They were always in the office. And what they have realized is they can continue that culture virtually. Is it the same? No. And I have to say, I still love the in-person meetings. I went to an in-person QBR for the first time a month ago, and it was great because we were able to be just a lot more spontaneous. You can interrupt, you can have a conversation with, Zoom or Teams, you really can't. But you can still keep the culture alive. And of course, we've done the happy hours, we've done the chocolate tastings, we've done the tea tastings, we've done a lot of fun things, games, to try to, keep it lively. I know maybe there's a little bit of Zoom fatigue now, and
a little bit. I think people are like a lot.
Well, we gotta get creative.
Yeah, we're here now, right? Right here, we're on Zoom together. If anyone's here listening on LinkedIn, we're here on Zoom, but we're making it happen. We're keeping it fun. So, we are. I've heard you in kind of nice segue actually. I heard you speak in the past about bringing your whole self to work. What does that mean to you?
To me, it means being able to be real. Being able to say, my dog's barking because the UPS guy just drove up. It means being able to say, hey, I want to do an expat assignment in another country, and I want the company to support that. And SuccessFactors just came out with something called Opportunity Marketplace that really embraces that whole self model. The focus is around serving up to employees these short-term assignments, these mentorships, these other opportunities, these learnings that we were discussing before, so that you can really kind of basically maximize what you want out of the workplace. So it's more focused on the employee. We put the employee at the center. And what we found with that is when you do that, the revenues follow, the profits follow.
Of course.
Everything works because you have a happy employee.
Yeah, they're engaged and you're also empowering them to take charge of their career. right?
That's right.
And that's super exciting to be able
really
to do
is.
that. And for a long time, we spoke about this, but we didn't really have the technology or the mechanisms to bring that to life. And also culturally, there's always this sort of hoarding of talent amongst the leaders. It's my talent. So there was a lot of things that, and again, there was a lot of work to do here as well, but things like creating a talent marketplace and encouraging people to take charge of their careers, it's only going to increase engagement, which obviously, of course, will result in happy customers, which will result in making more money. So,
True.
as
It's
well.
true. Somebody gave me great advice a long time ago, and now I think technology's finally caught up. A lot of times we used to look to our managers to promote us and to take us to that next level. And a woman I was talking to said, you have to take control of your own career. Nobody else is going to take control of it like you will. And I think now we're giving employees the ability to do that.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you a story quickly. One of my best friends, Mark, he did that and went to the extreme almost. He worked in an engineer in an oil and gas company. So he flies out to remote countries in the middle of nowhere to fix oil and gas pipelines. Super dangerous job as well. High pressure, armed guards to go to the middle of nowhere, right? And he was frustrated for a long time about their processes of how they did things internally, to the point where he got so frustrated, and also the lack of career development, that he ended up rewriting the entire playbook of how they do everything from scratch on his own time. And then he went and he actually went over the head of his manager and his leader and actually pitched the board directly and said, the way we're doing this isn't sufficient, etc. And now he's a global head of operations for that company within 2 years, right? And he was like, I'm just tired of waiting for someone to tap me on the shoulder and promote me, or all of these suggestions I'm putting out there they're not getting through. So he basically just set an appointment messaged them directly to the board, said, I've got something to present. They said yes. But it was just something I was really inspired me. It inspired me a lot when I heard him go and do that and that story.
It's kind of a funny, I have a similar story with me. I really wanted to work outside the United States, and I had applied for multiple roles. Nothing worked out. I was really frustrated. I was talking to somebody at our biggest customer event, Sapphire. I said, I can't figure out what to do. He said, look, Maryann, if you want to work in Europe, you've got to meet Frank Cohen. Frank was the leader of Europe at that point in time. And I said, okay, all right, I'll reach out. He was right. I literally walked down to the concert, and I'm standing next to a man, and I said, well, we're going to be together for the next couple hours. I'm Maryann Abbajay. Who are you? He said, I'm Frank Cohen.
No way.
I'm dead serious. It was crazy. And I said, Frank, I want a job in Europe. And you know what?
No way.
I got that job in Europe. He said, send me an email on Monday. I definitely want to talk with you. And I got that job. But I think, to your friend's point, you have to take matters into your own hands sometimes, right? In order to actually get where you want to be.
Yeah. And again, what's the worst case scenario? You're just going to carry on doing what you're going to do anyway. As well. And unfortunately, if you get to the point where you have a company where you don't see that avenue and you've exhausted that, then it's time to move on. And that's also okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It was similar with myself and Shane. We kind of had that situation, but it was, actually, let's start our own company. So it was a bit more extreme than that as well. But we kind of, we were tired of trying to bring our ideas to the table and being ignored. So we said, fine, we'll start our own company instead.
I do think all of us want your job. I love your job.
I get to chat to people every day and do this. I think people are like, do you even work, Chris? You just get to chat on LinkedIn Live and speak to amazing people. I was like, secretly, yeah, it's a pretty fun job. So when my friends say I work too hard, I'm like, it's not work when you're having fun as well. But for you, what are you most excited about? Just out of curiosity, kind of looking ahead.
You know what I'm most excited about? I'm most excited about the change in employee experience, the change that we're making for employees. Experiences are totally different than when I started work a long time ago. It is all about what makes you happy. And, part of the way that we gauge that happiness is, by asking. And we use Qualtrics to do that, and we do it on a regular basis. Matter of fact, I just got my results of our latest employee survey, and it's helpful because it tells you where you're doing great and where you're not doing so great, and what you need to do to adjust. And I see that just getting better. Again, back to kind of changes that I see companies making. They're changing their environments, right? Their offices are changing drastically because people are not going to be in an office all day, every day. They're going to come in once or twice a week. They need to have group meetings. So they've changed their real estate requirements, right? Some companies don't need as much office space as they did. What does that allow us to do? It allows us to put more into some of those benefits we were talking about before for employees.
Yeah, certainly exciting times. Obviously out of, was it Churchill's that never waste a good crisis? I think there's something along the lines, as well. Before I let you go, what advice would you give to sort of your younger self looking back?
I said no to a lot of opportunities, and part of the reason I said no was because I was conscious that I was a mom. I wanted to be there for my kids. I think now you don't have to say no. And I would probably embrace those new opportunities that perhaps you're being offered, but set the guidelines. Make sure that you put your family first. You're never going to get back the time with your kids. So I would never say, go for your career and forget about the kids. They'll be okay. Always put the kids first. But I would definitely take opportunities and just be firm about how that's going to work out.
Yeah. And then very lastly, what would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned, though, over the last sort of 18 months in this pandemic?
Patience. I'm not a very patient person, and I definitely think we've all had to be very, very patient. I started making sourdough bread over the last really year.
Is that like your de-stress? Like you just let me sleepy low cook?
It takes forever.
Oh, does it? How long does it take? I've never made it.
3 days.
Really?
Honestly, 3 days. And
wow, that's patience right there.
That's once you have the sourdough starter. It takes probably 5 to 7 days to actually get the starter. Or actually, let me say months. It takes
We're going to get a masterclass.
To get the starter to where you really want it to be. And then, there's a lot of trial and error. I threw away a whole lot of loaves before we ate loaves. So.
Yeah, I love that. When you said patience, now I get why you meant that, because I never knew that as well. No worries. Well, look, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. Thanks and I know hopefully you're gonna come over here soon and say hi in the UK. So hopefully
I am.
Hopefully
Chris,
you make it.
I hope so. If they let me in, I'm gonna be there. So
no worries.
Thanks for having me.
No, it was a pleasure. And for everyone listening, thanks for joining us. We haven't been on LinkedIn Live in a while, so it's nice to see you all. And if we don't see you again, have a great holiday. Enjoy the holiday period. And we'll see you all next year. But thank you so much, Maryann. I wish you all the best until we next chat.
Thanks,
see you later.
Chris.
Bye-bye.